Hello everyone, and welcome to our brand new podcast series, Keep It Science. I'm Dr. Elisabeth Kugler, and I'm here today with my Keep It Science co-host, Dr. Nick Gaunt.
Hello, that's me, Dr. Nick Gaunt. Thank you very much, Elisabeth. It's pleased to be here with you. It's launch week. We're really happy to have this opportunity to introduce ourselves as your Keep It Science hosts. We're here today for a quick starter episode just to share our personal journeys and insights into how we transition from the world of academia to a more creative science career. So first up, I suppose we wanted to share a little bit about who we are, what our backgrounds are. So Elisabeth Kugler, please start us off.
Thanks so much, Nick. So traditionally I'm trained as a biologist, but I think like many, I very soon realized that I didn't just want to do one thing, but many different things. And so I switched over to molecular biology and biomedical image analysis. I then, in my PhD, was very heavily involved in image communication and science communication in general. And I was really fascinated by the fact that we can acquire data in a three-dimensional space and we can analyze them and we can rotate the data and we can talk about them and show them. And it was just such a beautiful thing, what we can do with microscopy, that I then really said, okay, I want to share this with the wider world. And so I formed my company, Seeks Art for Geeks, last year in 2022. And at Seeks, what we do is really we work with data and we analyze them, we visualize them, and we communicate them. And so it's still a very fledgling company, but I think it was a great journey already in the last year to move away from academia and build my own business. And I think it's probably very similar to you, Nick, that you've always enjoyed science communication, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was just going to ask as well, what was that pivotal moment for you that led you into that career transition into Zeeks? Because I've seen all of your stuff on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you are very creative, but what made you make that switch? Because it's not always offered to scientists.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like I always kind of tried to be involved in both science and art or science and communication. But I think especially during COVID, it was this very kind of harsh reality, right? That working with data, you can work remotely, you can work from anywhere, you're very independent, you don't have to travel, etc. And so I wanted to really work on my own terms. And that's also why I formed my own company instead of working for another company, because I just wanted to have this freedom and still work with academics, but also, kind of go away from the typical things that we do in academia and really work with data in my own terms. And what about you? Like, how did you change from academia? And generally, what was your academic background?
Yeah, so my academic journey's definitely been a bit of a ride through the world of science. I bounced around a lot of different research areas, jumping on some of the big trends. So I was around doing my master's and PhD around the same time as Manchester University was hugely invested in carbon nanotubes and nanotechnology. Graphene had just got the Nobel Prize. So I worked on that for a lot of my undergrad master's area. And it's, it really fueled my curiosity. And so when I finished the MSc, I really sort of enjoyed the academic world at that point, and it sort of continued to beckon. So I found myself doing lecturing and demonstrating various fields, trying to impart any kind of knowledge I could on some eager learners. After that, going down to Exeter University to do my PhD there, collaborating with some of the big players in the agrochemical science field. I'd say that venture allowed me to contribute to another global trend. Well, I suppose it's not a trend, it's a challenge that we face, food security. And my research there sort of led me to doing lots of different publications in agrochemical design and advancement. And so by the end of the PhD, I'd kind of uncovered the creative side of science through marketing, which is marketing my own research. To me, it's fascinating how science and creativity kind of seamlessly intertwines. So when I completed my PhD, I continued to explore that intersection, kind of immersing myself in the sort of the latest breakthroughs and trying to aid companies launch products, individuals grow themselves online, etc. So I was working for a few different companies that did that. I did some freelance stuff. And then I suppose fast forward to January 2023, I've now launched my own company, basically wanting to do this for young companies, so helping them get off the ground and get going, which really sort of channeled my passion into these creative science roles a bit further. And yeah, our vision is to basically offer commercial support for emerging startups, scientific spin-outs, and fostering an environment for scientific ingenuity, let's say. But yeah, so I will say I knew I was doing this podcast, and it made me really think about what my inspiration was for getting into this kind of area. And I think it always sort of boils down to the power of storytelling and realizing its potential to help captivate and educate. Scientific discoveries and breakthroughs, although they're always big and awe-inspiring, often we lose them. They're confined to academic circles, or they're just buried under heaps of articles and journals that come out every single day. So something different, like a podcast or marketing in a different way. I found that we've been able to craft narratives that resonate and make science relatable and engage with this broader audience. The idea of demystifying complex concepts and making them accessible is, I'd say, my driving force behind my transition from academia to creative science.
I love that. That's great. And are you by training a chemist?
Yes, to begin with, I was a chemist, and then I've transitioned into physics or biophysics. It's a blurred line when it gets to a certain point, I think. And so I'd say I'm a chemist more than anything else, or a nanotechnologist.
But that's beautiful, because I think a lot of people don't assume chemists or biophysicists to be in, science communication as such. It's not a very traditional career path, which is wonderful. So great. Thank you for sharing. The other thing was also obviously storytelling. I think, like you say, a lot of research is kind of buried in the lab, and it's buried under, papers and scientific language. And you expanded a little bit on storytelling and, for example, podcasts. Could you talk a little bit more about, what you're doing at Acorn Scientific at your company now to help people tell their stories?
Sure, yeah. So Acorn, I started in January of this year, 2023. And I'd worked for companies previously that did work with the huge players in the game, and it's all business-to-business marketing, helping the big get even bigger. And I noticed that quite a lot of startup companies, well, it's more than quite a lot. I think it's 70 to 75% of startup companies fail within the first 3 years due to ineffective market. Well, one reason being ineffective marketing. So I decided to set up Acorn Scientific Marketing to help the little guy. It's the almost the Robin Hood story, I guess. So trying to help the little guy, not take down the big guy, but yeah. So in January we set that up. We've worked with a few different people and quite a few different companies across the world now that are in that smaller business space, helping them start their own strategies on social media, doing campaigns. Doing things like podcasts as well. I mean, I'm a huge champion of the podcast, kind of combined by us winning an award a couple of months ago now. So we won the Rising Star Award at this year's Startup Awards, which was huge for us.
Many congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's obviously working what we're doing, and we're really happy to be doing this. And
absolutely,
if we can help in some little way to get these messages out to the audience that they need to, then it's really worth it for us.
Definitely. It's such a great message. Like, storytelling is half the bet, right? If you have a great topic and you can't talk about it, or you can't tell the story, no one will hear it. So definitely very, very important point. So thanks for elaborating on that a little bit more. So I think now that we know a little bit more about Nick and myself, we also want to introduce why we are doing this podcast and why this podcast really matters, right? And so we really wanted to discuss the motivation behind all of this and, the goal to inspire and guide aspiring PhD students. I never really had a lot of guidance on what careers were out there and what they entailed and what I had to do to actually follow a certain career, and also what the current hot topics were. And so this podcast for me personally was really fueled with this intention to wanting to share all of these opportunities that are out there. And by inviting different incredible guests together, we can help our listeners to really understand different topics and different careers. So we kind of think of ourselves maybe as kind of digital mentors. If we can do that, that would be great. And really help people making informed decisions, right? But also learn about the latest research. So we will have various different peoples on the show who talk about their careers, about their, scientific endeavors, but also about their really personal journeys. And I think that makes this very unique. So maybe, Nick, do you want to expand a little bit more kind of what we can expect in this podcast to be coming up?
Yeah, sure. And just to add to what you said, I think while a strong academic foundation is undoubtedly kind of crucial, exploring all of these alternate career paths outside the traditional academic trajectory has enriched our perspectives, both of us, I'll speak for you as well, in some really invaluable ways, by sort of stepping beyond the confines of that, academic box. We ourselves and our future guests have all gained broader understandings of how science intersects with the real world. The rigid structure of academia often sort of emphasizes specified knowledge, let's say, and academia only teaches someone usually how to be confident in academic careers. I found a little stat online, and only around 30% of PhD students, for example, will feel confident approaching non-research related careers. So thus 70% of PhD students will therefore only really consider academic futures, because that's the only thing they're being pushed towards. However, for those who do, like me, like you, Elisabeth, as well, when we do venture into these creative science roles, it has shown us the importance of a multidisciplinary approach. Fusion, the fusion of ideas and skills from the various realms, science, marketing, communication, all of these types of things. These are the points that truly drive new innovation and progress in all of these different areas.
I think that's so interesting. And I think also one thing that you kind of start to elaborate on is obviously kind of imposter syndrome, right?
Sure.
In sciences and academia, we're often really prone to be, falling into this trap of imposter syndrome. So I think one topic that I'm really excited about is talk about this mindset shift for success. How can we talk about career changes and career, trajectories, and how can we cope with different changes coming up? And I'm also excited because we know that we have some speakers or guests coming up who are really inspirational leaders who talk about leadership, about, how to lead people, how to engage with people and have really honest and fierce conversations. I think this is really exciting. On top of that, we will also be talking obviously about hot topics such as AI, like everyone is talking about AI in medicine, for example. Yep. And, it's a topic that we can't ignore. So we're really excited to talk about that. But I think what is also really important is that we will talk about the insights, how AI is already changing the landscape of science. Because I think we're now at this point of seeing this change, right? That AI is not only in our everyday life, but it's also really changing the way how we do science and how we, how it works in diagnostics and in medicine. Absolutely. And I think that's going to be a very, very important discussion for us to talk about as well. So what other topics can we expect, Nick?
Yes, and just before that, you've got some, where you're hosting the first two podcasts that we've got after this one. And I'm very jealous because there's some really, really interesting people. As well as the topics that you've outlined, we're going to have some guests that talk about scientific communication and alternative careers, entrepreneurship, and much more. So if this all appeals to you and everything that we've said has been really interesting, make sure to check out our next episode here on Keep It Science. Now, we would absolutely love to hear your thoughts and comments, wouldn't we, Elisabeth?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if you have any questions or problems or ideas for upcoming episodes, please email us at keepitscience@gmail.com. That's keepitscience@gmail.com. And if you have any questions of hot topics, also just email us. But also we're on LinkedIn, so you can also find Dr. Nick Gaunt or myself, Dr. Elisabeth Kugler, and obviously you can just connect there.
Yes, and we're also on Twitter, as is the Keep It Science podcast, @KeepItScience, where we'll be sharing the latest episodes and some behind-the-scenes insights. So join us next time, where we'll be talking to two industry experts about their experience in two very complementary industries. Follow us on social media to be the first to hear about who they are and what they'll be talking about. Action. Oh, I don't know why I did that. That's so lame.
That was hilarious. We keep that in. Okay.
No, please no.
Oh, yeah.
I actually, so I learned about, completely off topic. I learned about why the the clapper in movies.
Yeah.
Do you know why they use it?
To, I don't know, indicate the times and stuff or something. I don't know.
It's to make sure, because when you're filming something, so there's audio and video, they're being collected separately, and so
to sync
the
them.
So yeah, when you see the clap, that sound should send a huge spike in the waveform, and so you can easily sync it up to the millisecond, because you'll see the clap go down, and the big jump in the audio.
But
so I learned that
science. That's a fact. So we can keep that as the first.
There you go. Yeah.
Fact. Or science.
This podcast is sponsored by, well, nobody at the moment. If you'd like to sponsor a future episode of this podcast, then please email us at keepitscience@gmail.com or get in touch with us on Twitter or LinkedIn, and this could be your 30 seconds of airtime.